Welcome to the Travels with Tulsans, sponsored by the Friends of the Tulsa City County Libraries. My name is Giselle McDaniel, and we are glad to have you join us for the last and 8th presentation of Travels with Tulsans. We want to thank the Rudisill Regional Library staff for coming to our rescue when we had scheduling conflicts at Central. On March 11th, another series is starting, Books Sandwiched In, and these will be on Tuesdays at noon, and books will be reviewed, and this is our first one, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. Is it Mondays? Okay, Mondays. Oops. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't a Wednesday. Thank you for pointing that out. The Friends group is also sponsoring that series, the Book Sandwiched In. If you would like to become a member of the Friends of the Tulsa City County Libraries, please pick up a membership form in the back of the table. We would love to have you join us in supporting our 5-star library system. Our travel today will take us to Africa to visit the natural habitats of the African animals. And our tour guide is Gerald Taron, assisted by his wife, Barbara. Gerald was born in France and Barbara was born in Germany. They fell in love in Frankfurt, and eventually they made their home in Fairfield, Connecticut in 1963. Gerald worked for Hilti, and then he was transferred to Tulsa. And Barbara, she started working at Tulsa Community College, teaching French and German. They have both retired, and they're doing travels. And now let's hear from Gerald and Barbara. Thank you.
Hello. I'm sure you all would want to know why Namibia and what time of year did you choose? We chose November, but why November? October. Well, the very last part of October in the beginning of November. And but why so late in the year? It's because at that time, the leaves are off the trees and you see much more wildlife. And that is what we really wanted to do. We had been in South Africa before, but it was a guided tour. It included the Chobe National Park. And this time we wanted to do it on our own. So on our own, that means self-drive. And that's a whole different story. I'll let Gerald tell you how we got there and how we rented the car.
Okay. Before we get started, I would like to use the map and show you which route we followed. Went all the way up this way, down to Botswana, up to Zambia, and finally Zimbabwe. Now, what is interesting is that you have the entire country here, and you have a very little strip that's about 10 miles long. That is almost like the Oklahoma in the middle. That sticks out in the middle of Africa.
I wondered about that.
Why?
It was an agreement between the German and the British at the time of the occupation. And the British owned the land, and the German, I'm not sure of the history, but somehow they horse traded, and the German ended up with that little strip of land.
And from there, I mean, Gerald did the research, so that's why technically he knows everything. He contacted a Namibian travel agency, and we gave them the main points that we wanted to see. They organized it, gave us a rundown. We said, yeah, but this is what we want to change or not. And then they, in turn, made reservations with the hotels and made us like the AAA triptych. And that triptych is something else to see. You will get a copy on the presentation over there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So we left Tulsa, and from there we went on to Atlanta. And from Atlanta, we flew directly to Johannesburg. There was no direct flight to Namibia. So Johannesburg is in South Africa. We stayed there overnight. And the next day we flew on to Windhoek,
Now,
which is the capital of Namibia.
Now, Johannesburg, we, you know from history what to expect, kind of, and we were in a lodge near the airport. So I was very apprehensive, and as we drove down, we saw buildings that had hardly any windows, but it was looked kind of industrial. Then we came to an area, and everybody had that razor wire over the walls and so forth. We came to an area where there was just a picket fence, electric wires on the top though. It opened up, and that was our lodge, and it was like a tropical paradise. It was so calm. We saw animals. And so we stayed there overnight, and the next day we went to Windhoek, and that's where we rented the car. You want to talk about it? Okay, I mean,
That's the capital of Namibia. They have about 500,000 people. And this is the largest town in Namibia. All the others are very small. Think of any small town in Oklahoma. That will be the size of the most of the towns you pass through in Namibia.
and the driver picked us up at our lodge, I mean, a driver, but that was all arranged through our rearranged travel agency. So that driver picked us up, drove us to the car rental place, and that is where we rented our car. It was a four-wheel Jeep, kind
Yeah,
of,
that's a
No,
Toyota. A
Toyota.
Toyota four-wheel.
And it had a refrigerator. It had in that back, and of course, room for our luggage. And what else did we have in there? Oh, 2 tanks for gas, because the gas stations were far and in between. And that map that we are going to show you from the travel agency, they outlined where we would find gas, or where we have to take a little side road. Markers like an anthill then you take a right, kind of. But you will see as we see through the
Actually,
slides.
this is one of the pages for the instructions, and it exactly tells what she said. Drive 50 kilometers, turn left. There is a sign that says Post Slicing, and that's it. We had no maps, nothing else. We just had a little. And during the entire trip, we were there for 25 days. There was only 2 mistakes on those instructions. 2 times what we got a little bit lost, but we realized it right away. So Namibia was a German protectorate from 1884 to 1919. And after that, it was governed by South Africa from 1920 to 1990. Mostly desert, very low fresh water, and for that reason, it cannot support a large population. The country is 318,000 square miles, and by comparison, Oklahoma is 68,578. So you can see it's about 5 times what a little bit between 4 and 5 times larger. Now, being that much larger, it only has 2.6 million people. Oklahoma has 4 million people, and we are much smaller. The density is 8 people per square mile. In Oklahoma, it's 54 people per square mile. The annual precipitation is 10.95 inches. In Oklahoma, it's 33 inches. But you have to understand that in some areas, they get less than a half inch of water a year. Of course, in other areas, they get a lot more. So on the average, it's 10.95, but keep in mind that some areas have very, very low water. Dry season, April to October, and that's when the animals tend to gather in the shade in the water holes. January to February are the hottest months. Temperatures 86 to 95, peaks up to 104. July to August, 70s, and September and October, 80s. Well, it's about the same temperature. We were there early in October. The country derives its income from minerals, lead, zinc, silver, gold, and believe it or not, uranium. They're the 5th largest producer. They also have diamond mines. Tourism, 14% of the national product and 15% of the employment. Whoops, I used the wrong key. English is spoken everywhere, but of course, African, they used to be in charge for a long time, so the African language is spoken there. German, some German, and various indigenous languages, and there are many. Now,
All right, from Windhoek, we went to the Sossusvlei Lodge, and Gerald is going to show it to you on the map.
that was about a 200 miles, that little trip.
And it was all on sand, because shortly after Windhoek, the road stopped. I mean, the tarred road stopped. So you will see on our slides what we mean. Now, there we are still on the tarred road.
And as you notice, we're driving on the left side of the road. It's like in England.
And that's the end. It was very short. I forgot how many miles it was. And from there we drove to Walvis Bay on a dirt road.
Now the sign here says 80 miles an hour. I mean, 80 kilometers an hour. And our reaction was the same as yours. We laughed, ha ha ha, who's going to do 80 kilometers an hour on a road that's
like a washboard.
It's like a washboard, you know, it had ripples in it. So, but after a while, we realized that if we were going to go 25, 30 miles an hour, we wouldn't make it. So we had to go to 80 miles to
80 kilometers.
80 kilometers an hour, which is about 50 miles an hour.
And you see, there's the oncoming traffic, or what we leave behind, or else what somebody else left behind.
I was a little bit concerned because I was afraid after a while the air filter of the car would get plugged, but we didn't have any problem. And that's really interesting. It's a bird's nest.
One nest, but many.
The picture doesn't make it justice. It's about 10 feet tall. I mean, you can compare it to the tree, so you can tell.
I mean, I call it weaver bird's nest. Yes, and the pygmy falcon is also in living in there. Actually, the weavers built a space for the pygmy falcon so that he can protect them from the vermin that might be climbing up on a tree. And the pygmy falcons, the weaver birds, each one of those little holes is a tunnel to a nest or several nests inside. They have little side tunnels. And because of the thickness of the nest, it is, of course, guarding the heat out, keeping the heat out. It's a little bit climatized.
Okay, now we are going to explain a little bit. This is a mountain range on the brown. The left side is the Namib Desert. There is a plateau in the center, and this is the Kalahari Desert on the other side. And we are going into the Namib Desert right now.
Part of the Namib, okay, the Naukluft.
We are now passing through the mountain range.
And that was a dried riverbed, of course. And those were our first oryx that we encountered.
And it's midday at this time. And you will notice as we go along, every time we reach noontime, all the animals, wherever there is a tree, you'll find the animals. They're looking for shade. So now we are reaching the Namib Desert.
And that is our first lodge. And there were individual little cabins.
That was the view from our cabin.
And since we arrived in the late afternoon, at the reception, they told us that there was a flight available if we wanted to rent it over the dunes at sunset. Of course, we grabbed it. And that was our
We are
view.
flying over the lodge.
And
this is where we will be the following day. And those are the dunes.
And the pictures here do not do it justice. It was just absolutely gorgeous. The shadows of all those dunes, and it was reddish. And then you would see, like in the dark, that would be more like a pit. And at the very bottom, it would usually be gray. I mean, here you can see it. And those gray areas are mud deposits when it rains. But then it dries out, completely cracking. And the fairy circles, nobody really knows what they're made of. They say it's termites underneath. They think, but
Are they large?
relatively, yeah.
Yes, pretty large.
But still, you see a lot of them. And the fact is, I mean, the pilot told us before we had actually a whole orientation first. And then he, during that orientation, he told us by hand signal, tell me if you want to go lower or higher, whatever you want to do, I'm yours, because we were the only passengers. So here we were fairly low. Here we were even lower. I was afraid he was going to touch the water. That's the skeleton coast. So I said, that's enough. Up, up, up.
And it's called a skeleton coast because the seabed in front of that coast is fairly low, and they said there are 500 shipwrecks over the years, over many years. There were 500 shipwrecks, and also during whaling times, there were lots of whaleboats there.
Did you see any remnants of a shipwreck?
No, we didn't. Maybe by that time we were too high, I don't know. But we went then up towards the sand, I mean, on the side of the sand dune and saw those fairy circles. We could even count sometimes the grass blades.
So this was the evening.
It was a-
Restaurant, nice little place.
Where'd they get their water? For a
Well,
resort?
for our trip, you mean?
No, I mean for the resort. 'Cause it looked like it was
I
in
don't
the
know.
desert.
They pump it in from the ocean?
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Now, the next morning, we took a walking tour. And that is the Sossusvlei Canyon. It's, what did you say? Half
It's
a
a
mile
river
up?
bed. You know, when there is once in a while, there is a lot of rain and it gets filled up and eroded at the time, but it's only a half a mile long and 100 feet deep.
Now, that's the next day's lodge. Again, we had some, you always get one of those little individual huts. That's for the person. And we had reserved number 14 because it was right across the waterhole. And there we are sitting, wrapped up at night in our blankets. They had 2 easy chairs, and the waterhole would be right in front of us.
Now you think, you know, this is Africa and 80 degrees in the daytime.
Very
the
cold.
night would be okay, right? No, it was below 45 degrees at night.
Very, very cold. And even the locals there, the restaurant told us that was even colder than what they're used to. So, and this was
That's Barbara in a chair covered in blankets.
and we did not see much. The ostriches were the only thing that came because it was so cold. But in the distance, we could see more than, and especially the next day. I mean, we got our money's worth of wild animals. So now the next day we went to the St. June area, what the whole area is called for, the Sossusvlei, Sossus June. Well, 2 ostriches. And then there's
Bat-eared wolves. Never heard of
Foxes.
rather. I'm sorry. Bat-eared foxes. Never heard of them before, but there they are.
I mean,
You
they
can see
had
those
big ears,
big ears.
and their tail always went to the side. I don't know if it was the wind that was blowing it, but you can see they all had that tail to the left side.
So one of the dunes is 1,200 feet above the ground. And that tree, believe it or not, is 600 years old because the weather is so dry and there is so little water that it doesn't decay. I mean, it's not the only one. There are many that don't decay.
That's a jackal. And one of those dunes, I mean, probably the highest one after that mud thing, we tried to climb. But before getting there, I don't know if you have a slide of that or not. When the dunes, where we drove.
Somebody fed
Oh, yeah.
the
Okay.
jackal a little bit of meat or
An
sandwich
apple.
or whatever. And after the minute it was finished, the cow jumped in and finished whatever was left over.
Yeah, that's our drive to the lodge, to the bottom of the sand dune. They had a parking lot earlier, and from there they asked us if we wanted to drive or if we wanted to take the shuttle, because they did have a shuttle to go in there. We figured we have 4 wheels, let's try to drive. But we got stuck a few times, and Gerald had to rock the Jeep back and forth until we made it out of there.
Well, the pickup truck had tires that were more aggressive than the street tires, but they were not aggressive enough to go in something like this.
That's
So
the road.
it was like driving on ice, really.
Not too many people went in there. I mean, I at that parking lot, I don't know, maybe 2 cars or so. I mean, inside after that sand. And that's how it looks up close.
That's the mud that's cracked because there is no water. It's Barbara trying to climb up the hill. And every time we make 2 steps forward, we are slid back about 1 slide back down again.
So after a while, we gave up
We give up.
and said, but, no.
So we're now leaving the area and going to Sossusvlei, which is a little bit further north. Not much more, but a little bit further north.
And
Go ahead.
we're passing the Tropic of Capricorn. It's the latitudinal circle that is going all around the world, where the sun at noon is directly above.
And we're going past the mountains again. Now they are allowing us 100 kilometers this time.
And I guess I have to say something to those street signs, even though they allow us that speed. Once in a while, they warn you that there is a depression coming, but you better heed it because it's like a double speed bump, in reverse, and you really worry about your axle.
We got caught in a sandstorm, and even though it doesn't look like much here, it was very hard to see through the windshield. I could hardly see anything.
You can see how the wind blows the sand across the street.
That's a paved road.
That is a paved road because we are now going to
Sossusvlei.
Bay.
So right after this, oops, what happened here? I need help here.
Now, Walvis Bay is, of course, like the word says, it's near the water. We were curious what it is going to show. And, well, we saw flamingos along the way, and you're probably going to have a little bit of that. And now, Walvis Bay, okay, here we go. Nice European influence. And, yeah.
Kind of reminded us of Holland and northern Germany.
I couldn't hear you.
What's on the chimney, on the
That
top
black-
of the chimney?
The black.
Oh, and the chimneys, I think those are weather, that they turn with the weather. You know, it's the wind. Weather vanes.
So they had both. They had the old-fashioned houses and the very modern houses.
And this is a town? Is this a town?
Yes, it is a town, about 50,000 people, I believe. So about the size of Broken Arrow, if you will.
And that's the flamingos that that I mentioned.
And now we are going a little bit further north again, and we are reaching the city of Swakopmund.
Now, Swakopmund, you will find that there are lots of buildings with German names, especially offices because of the colonial time.
Stadtmitte is city
Stadtmitte.
center.
Oh, Bezirksgericht, yeah. That means the courthouse of the area. And there we are at the summer residence. And in the city, it's like American Midwest cities, maybe. I mean, it was a fairly big city. You say 36,000 inhabitants?
Yeah. Well, and it is either the 4th or 5th most populated city in Namibia. So you can visualize when I said they compare to a small town in Oklahoma. That's
And there, I mean, of course, we visited the handicraft market and so forth, but we had to park our car. We wanted to park our car just before we reached the center of town, and there was a guard that looked official, and for a tip, he would watch your car. There goes the landscaping. Yeah, having a ball. And we also had a very nice restaurant there to observe the sunset. Somebody had mentioned it previously in a lodge.
So now we're going further up.
Now, one thing before you go further up, we had to stay in a hotel there at that time, and Gerald tossed and turned in bed because he figured, well, we are in a town, they might just break into our car in the back. And because it was only, it wasn't very solid in the back, they could take our water, they could take our gas, they could take our spare gas, or they could take the, what was the word about? Well, anyway, we were worried. So he got up and turned the car around, went down to the parking lot, turned the car around with the back facing the wall. So in such a way that nobody would get to the back. And that was then our preferred way of parking when we had a possibility.
So we are at the border of the Kalahari Desert. We're going in and out a few times. We're not quite getting into it, but we're a little bit into it, not much. And here you can't really see it, but those horses were
rather skinny.
Really.
The ribs, the next
Skinny.
one is, you can see the ribs.
It's really a poor country. This is a small village. Another one. And we're arriving at
The Aiba Lodge. Now that's a guest lodge, tourist destination. The warthogs were grazing right in front of our dining room. And our village, our cottage, well, that is a warthog. And they're not afraid of us. Well, we stayed away.
Yes. Well, they will let you know that that's the corner. They don't want you there.
And that was, one of those two was our lodge. And of course, you can see the boulders right above. And we were definitely afraid that one of them might fall down.
So we went on top and looked to make sure that everything was stable.
Now, these are called the Erongo Mountains, what you just saw. They're known for having those round boulders. And the Tridorn acacia tree, that is one that we come back to later on. They have 3 thorns sticking out, very long, very hard thorns. There you see them. And when the animals, either in pursuit of another animal or fleeing from another animal, hit that, they can poke out their eyes and whatever. And that's what we are going to come back later. I won't take it away yet.
And that's a dassy. No, it's hard to describe what it is. I would say it's smaller than a rabbit and bigger than a rat. That's about the only description I can give.
Now again, dirt road. And here, that's a nice little adventure. We on that dirt road, they came with their 4 donkeys and they waved us and we stopped. They asked for water. And of course we had water. So they were very happy. And you can see they're very well dressed. They may have been going to a wedding or something like this. You know that we're not just going to do farm work.
we inquire about the little gadget and they say, oh, the reason it's out is because it's a radio. We're listening to it. So
A
it had a
radio?
dual function, a radio and a lantern. And here we're in the Kalahari again.
And those road graders, they're constantly at work. But still, our roads were washboard size.
And that was an interesting thing because we had been in Spain. I don't know if any of you have been there, but on the mountains in Spain, they have still statue of bulls that they usually put them on the top of a hill. And we saw that giraffe and said, oh, we do the same thing over here because it was just standing there and we stopped and we watched and we watched and we watched. It never moved. And finally, after, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes, it
One
moved
side.
on. So we're again on a dirt road, but you notice that it's a little bit greener now. We are further north. And again, one of those lodges with many rocks.
And that was the main lodge, and we would have a cabin on the side. And there we had a guide, and he was very well speaking English, and he explained to us the rock engravings and paintings and so forth, and what the trees' functions were. I mean, there were several trees, like one particular one. Do you have the mopane tree or? Well, those are the engravings. And some of those engravings were there to teach the children. He said it was a classroom showing where the waterhole is and so forth, and which animal owned that waterhole, his priority. And that's a mopane tree, and that's a very important tree in that area because it serves, it has a bacteria killing properties as they kill as much as bleach. It has a hardwood that is difficult to work with, but it's also difficult to rot. It's termite resistant and it's reddish in color. So they use it for floors or for clarinet building, I mean, musical instrument building. And the leaves are very high in protein. So they have the mopane worm, they call it. It's a caterpillar. And that caterpillar is because it's high in protein, they harvest it, the people harvest it and dry it in the sun and then cook it or sell it. So it's appreciated. And actually the sale of the worms contributes significantly to their economy. So it's not just a few. The bark, they make twine out of it, and the leaves are healing. Now, is that the shepherd tree? Yeah. That has similar properties. I mean, they call it the tree of life, though, because its roots reach down 230 feet. So it can get water all along. But even that one dries off once in a while. And when it dies off, they take the branches, store them away in the closet, and bring them out at Christmas. And the sooner you put that back into water, it sprouts again. And that is the welwitschia plant. And that is a very, very protected plant, very rare. It has, what is it? They can live over 1,000 years. Their roots are on the surface, I mean, under the surface, but very, very far away. So they don't allow you to walk there. And also, you think there are many leaves, but the wind has torn them apart. So it's only 2 leaves, really. Now, the Living Museum of the Damara people, they are demonstrating how a real village life is. Again, I had a young guide that was absolutely adorable. And each one of us more or less had a guide, and they would explain to us how they make fire, how they forge tools. This one is talking about the pharmacy to me. Yes, very
Yes.
good English. Medicinal plants and their function. And this is an old man. He's cleaning the fur of a skin, so for loincloth. And that's a game. I haven't quite understood yet. I mean, from what I read, it's a serious game. You can lose your entire property. You bet on something, and depending on the outcome, you either lose your cattle or you gain some. Now we are trying to find some elephants. We hired and
So that's a special breed. Apparently, there is about maximum of 700 left in the world. 350 in Namibia, and I'm not sure what the other. Another country with also 350 or less.
and the reason why they're so special is because they can live longer without water. I had 4 to 5 days. You had 3 days.
Well, the male is 5 days, the females is 3 days. Apparently what's happening is that the fog from the sea comes inland, leaves moisture on the leaves, and that allows the vegetation to grow and them to eat the vegetation that they find in the riverbed. They stay mostly in the riverbeds.
And we got pretty close to them. I mean, our guide said, let's head them off. So we see them coming from the front. And then he told us, as long as they keep their head down, we are okay. But if they raise their head, we better get out of there.
Are they smaller than like the Asian elephants?
No, they're really quite gigantic. They were very big. You can see the other one is still pretty big. And then they were trying to get us a real good Namibian sunset, but we didn't get high enough, fast enough.
So now further up north again.
Another
The
mountain
scenery
range.
has changed. And we're still passing many small farms.
And there we
Whoops.
probably went a little fast, but okay. We had a lodge up there and in that mountain. And at the bottom, there was a parking lot to leave your car because it was too steep for most cars. And they didn't. And there was an attendant at the bottom and one on the top so that there would be only one-way traffic. We said, we have a 4-wheel drive, let's use it. So, but then that oryx stood in our way. And that was our view from our lodge. That's a deep ravine. And down, it was hard to take a picture. I mean, that's our jeep. And I took a picture of this. But down there is the attendance slot where you see the other cars, the main road.
So at this point, we're on our way to visit a village that is restricted, if you will. Only you can have a special permit to go and visit that village. And because of the lodge where we were staying at, we got that permit. The lodge is
Paying for flour, I mean, get some flour to eat, to make bake things.
so
Yeah.
because of that, we're allowed to go and visit. And this is the resource of the area. You can compare it to the size of a pickup truck. It's pretty small. And there is a very intensive control for foot and mouth disease. And that area was completely fenced in. And they had a cattle guard, so the animal wouldn't go in or out.
And we crossed with a jeep that little waterways many times.
And here's some zebra, and I didn't realize there were different kind of zebra. Those are mountain zebra, and what you'll notice is that the black stripe are very close to one another. When
They're
you
like
see the
sucks.
other zebras, the white and the black are much wider, if I can put it this way.
And that's that tribe. That's the chief of the Himba tribe. And the Himba tribe is, like I said, you're only allowed, usually you don't get in there. You have to be allowed through the hotel. And the hotel has special permission because they help them with flour.
Another small village. And this is very interesting. This is a termite mound.
And those were our road signs that they indicated on the map when they said 50 meters after the termite turn left. Because they are always pointing north. So you know exactly where the north is. And take advantage of the rising sun and the setting sun and the heat during the day that they want to shield themselves from. And so this was that air conditioned. Yeah, that was during a night safari. Yeah. And we saw an aardwolf.
The only one. That's the only one we saw. So now we're going to the Etesha Park. And as you can see, it's a huge park, 217 miles long, 8,600 square miles. And it was set up in 1907 by the German governor at the time. And we have to sign in and we have to sign out.
And we got a map that shows exactly where the toilets are, which was very important because you are not allowed to go anywhere, because not only for hygienic reasons, but for your own safety. The animals are wild. And you had to find that fenced area.
We had been advised to stay within the park to avoid the rush of people coming in. And also they only open at a certain time. Being in the park, you could get up at what time you wanted, get to bed at what time you wanted. And it was so much easier to be in the park. And we wanted to test you and see if you could find the elephant in here. It's just to show you how hard it is to see the wildlife. And that's why we chose the time of the year, because when the trees are full of leaves, you lose half the pleasure of seeing the wildlife.
Can you show him the elephant?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so it wasn't just one. Anyway, this is kind of funny because we hadn't seen elephants really before. And I said, oh, I think we're seeing elephants. And then Gerald said, yeah, elephant rocks. Because all we saw is the backs, elephant rocks. And just as we came close, they were crossing the street. Yeah, the rocks. And with the
So a kudu. And that was our first night in the park.
And they told us the restaurant was on the top of the mount. We have to call for them to pick us up because of the wildlife all around us. Don't go out.
Well, they were more specific. They were saying there is lions out. You can take your chances. So again, we're midday And they're seeking the shade.
And those are the lions that we talked about. And we wanted to really see them up close once. And we had just about bypassed them. And without seeing, I said, Gerald, I think they were lions. So we backed up a little bit. And sure enough, and they were sleeping. Then I said, toot the horn.
Is that your mic now?
You're not talking to the horn.
I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, that's after.
That-
Tutu
That's
Horn.
after we tooted the horn. He lifted the head and just looked at us. And then he immediately figured, oh, tourists.
So we did it again. He went right back to sleep. That was the next one we saw. And this one was kind of, we could tell he was looking at us with a little slit in his eyes. Oops, we're going back.
And those are the little steam box. They look like a little toy box with big eyes.
We have
And those
reached
are wildebeest.
one of the water holes.
And oryx. And those water holes have all of the animals of the area. Springboks, they have that marking that makes them look as if they had no belly. And here are the zebras again.
And you can see those are much wider stripes than the others.
Right. And at one point, it wasn't there because we didn't have a guide, but at another point, I asked, how do you tell male from female? And he said, that's quite easy. The males are black on white, and the females are white on black. Yeah. So who has priority? Wait.
It appears very dangerous, but after a while, one goes and it goes back to normal.
This is supposed to be a water hole. I mean, it's maintained with, for them to have water, but obviously the lions are gardening. Another one of the water holes. Notice how one is going in a different direction.
Yeah.
That must be the guard. He was watching out for the others.
You can see those water holes are very populated. I guess for those who can see this, it's Mrs. Wildbeast telling her husband to get busy. So we're now reached the center of the park. And this is interesting because we saw that several times. You can see this little group here is going to drink, but there is one guard way up there waiting. So they all went to drink one by one. But after everybody was gone, the guard came down and had his own drink.
But his time was much shorter, and then he had to catch up with his duties. Now the Tasha plain or pan, that is a water plain, but it hasn't had water for a long time.
1,840 square miles, that's pretty large. Now, I had to take a picture and count how many, and I counted 132 zebras in that one picture.
You have a huge telephoto lens.
No, we were that close. We were really right up. And not even outside the car. I mean, for the most part, we were filming that from inside the car.
And here, elephants spend 55% of the time eating. They consume 4 to 6% of their weight, and a 6,000-pound elephant cow will eat 375 pounds. No, the male will eat more than that. They only digest 40% of what they eat, and their dung contains seeds and other nutrients. And you have other animals that go through the elephant dung and actually eat out of the dung.
And actually, there's also another point. They do not eat the fruit of a tree because the fruit is going to make seeds and make more trees. And I mean, the guards told us that they are very, very intelligent beings. I mean, they would shake sometimes the tree so some fruit would fall down, but the leaves they will not take.
And as you can see, they are taking their mud bath. They need mud on their skin so that the sun won't give them sunburn.
But they come very organized by groups. They wait, the further one away waits until one group is finished, and then they move in.
So that's the next group coming in. But one group has finished taking the bath, and this is the next group moving in.
Famous roads again.
And I guess most people are not aware, but giraffes have a very difficult time drinking because, and this one is a pretty small one, but we have seen taller ones that they really have to spread their legs and bend their neck down. It's very difficult for them to drink.
And that is a very, very rare white rhino. We saw it from a distance on a parallel street. We realized we could drive around and head it off. And that's what we did. So we saw it coming closer and closer. And there were other cars doing the same thing, waiting for it. But as it came so close, some people got scared and left right in front of us. So he will still munch a little bit. Do you see the outline of our car here? That white? That's where he passed, between those two cars, because the car where he is now has left.
And it's only later on that Barbara spoke to someone at the hotel, and the person said, well, I've been here 3 or 4 times trying to find it and see it. I've never seen it. He was kind of jealous. Hyena. And that was our last stop in that park. Again, very nice restaurant. And this is interesting. This is elephant feeding at night, and I didn't know they would do that.
And they told us in the lodge, if you go down to the fence, I mean, there was electrically fenced off so that they wouldn't come out or we wouldn't go in. But we could see him, we would hear him from a distance already when they were walking through the swamp. And you could hear that noise of them lifting their feet out of the water and down again. And then all of a sudden they appeared right in front of our faces. and we were able to see him really up close. Maybe the computer knows that it's time to leave.
Okay, so now we're out of the park. We're way up there. This was the park. We're going to go down this way, back up this way, and go into the what they call a Kapiti strip at Lotong. Then you go into Botswana. Now,
Tsumeb is on the way. We didn't even stop much. And
No,
there we saw
we
Herero.
didn't really dare to take people facing us, so we took that lady when she wasn't watching. But this is typical. The entire, as we walked through the town, all these people were dressed like this.
The Hereros. And you can see it's flowering. Now, Hakusembe was our next lodge, and that was on the way. That's not our lodge, but it was on the way. We see those little villages.
And you can see it's pretty poor. I mean,
But for the tourists, they take care of them. And they're going to the local market.
and as to this day, I still don't understand how people can have a basket on their head and walk. They do it. I mean, it's amazing.
Do they have electricity in the village? I noticed all those wires.
Yes, they do. They do. I saw that several times, that there's electricity.
That was our next lodge. And interestingly enough, this is Namibia, and that is Angola on the other side of the river. And we were advised, don't you dare to get to step in Angola, they'll throw you in jail.
You won't come back.
Oh, wow.
So we took another river cruise. And these are Angolan ladies enjoying the afternoon sun.
But notice that they even wear a bikini. Very modern.
And that is a garden on the shore of the river with a little wall on the side to prevent animals from going in. A mimosa plant, another little village. And
The north has more farming. It's a little greener. And see, this lady, for instance, saw a ice cooler on her head, a baby in a bag, and a water bottle in her hand. Goes to market.
so at this point in time, that's when we are going to enter the little tongue of Namibia. And we had to fill up, make sure both tanks of the car were filled up because there were no gas for like 300 or 400 miles. And somebody has a shop selling a roof for the little huts.
The local Lowe's.
And the pole for the side of the huts. And this is what a hut under construction looks like. And here we have deer crossings. They have elephant crossings.
Know that?
If they have their head down, you can go. If it's up, you better not.
Okay.
And there we had one of those little huts. That was our bathroom.
And that is the wall of the bathroom. There is nothing behind it. This is the wall.
Took a little evening cruise again. So
And a water monitor.
well,
And we're going to Chobe Park in Botswana. And as we leave the country, we had a handful of change or whatever. And we saw those two ladies, so we gave them our change. And they were very happy. And that you notice the elephant is using his tusk to rip the bark off the tree. And we saw that back in the Kruger Park. They start on the bottom, they go way up. And then with a trunk, they roll the thing up, the bark, and they tear it off.
Do they eat the bark?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
You went
How
too
did I
far.
get there?
That was a first one. Okay, one more further
Okay.
back.
Going into Botswana, we had to wash our feet
Disinfect.
to disinfect for foot and mouth. And we had to pass the car through the little bath here to disinfect underneath the car.
And there we were going into the Chobe National Park. And I had read someplace that it was the most scenic, most beautiful place to do, and that we would see lots of wild animals. And since we had a four-wheel drive, that's just the only thing allowed, I said, Gerald, let's do it. And yes, we were all for it.
So-
As we entered,
Here, the drive is about 40 miles, and it says it would take 38 minutes. Now, the queen here decided she wanted to take the
scenic
tourist scenic route. And believe me, I swore at her, because leaving that road, we went down an escarpment that was about this, like this. And it was very narrow, not much wider than this, probably narrower than that, with boulders and trees on the side. And I told her as we were coming down that you shortened my life by a couple of years.
Oh, you told me 20 years. And it was sand, just all sand. And he couldn't even brake or anything. We were just going like in a toboggan thing, going down. And we knew we would not be able to go back up. So forward is the only way. But just hoping that it will get better.
So we are now at the bottom of that famous hill. And this is the river, the Chobe River. And it's also full of wildlife, as you can tell. And we have the mongoose over here, abandoned mongoose. Some vultures. An African open bill. And some sable antelope. Blocking our way again.
And going on. Not worrying much about us.
You can already tell from the picture of this guy is really bluish green. A very, very pretty color.
It was really, the sun was reflecting off. Now, you have no idea how glad we were when we saw this car, because we knew we had to be out of the park by 6. Until then, we had not seen any sign of roads or anything. And we asked, are we still on the right way? And he said, yes. I mean, Gerald said, the river flows downhill, right? We are at the other end. So as long as we go with the river's flow, we have to eventually get out. But there were so many elephants, and they crossed our paths at one point, and because they all wanted to go down to the water here. That was our road we wanted to go up. And you can see the sand. And so we could not accelerate fast. We knew the only way getting past them was going to go fast, because every time we tried, there was a new group coming. See, there's a little group higher up.
They're very powerful. It doesn't take very much for them to overturn a car. Oops, what did I do now? Okay, so now we are out of the park. And we have Namibia on this side, Botswana on that side, Zimbabwe over here, and Zambia over here. So we are coming off the park, and we are going to be crossing the Zambezi River, going through Zambia, and we're going to end up in Livingstone, Zambia. So that's the city of Kasane. Again, a little bit like Broken Arrow or any small town in Oklahoma. And whoops,
That's okay.
this is a fruit that is as big as a coconut. It has a yellow skin, and we kind of inquire, can we get one or can we eat one? And they said, no, the shell is so hard that you really, it's like a coconut. You have to open it like a coconut. And they're little houses like in South Africa. And here we had a little bit of trouble because we had lost our front license plate. And in that country, you have to have 2 license plates. And this lady listened to our story. She seemed very skeptical. So, you know, where is your plate? And we just explained that we are tourists and we lost a plane. There is nothing we can do. We can get a new one. So after a few minutes, she let us go. And we went through that checkpoint several times. A couple of times they gave us a hard time, but after that, it just go through.
Yeah, because in order to go where we wanted to go, our camp was right outside that point, and we had to go back and forth.
This is some damage caused by elephants. And there was a little marsh there. And that's a bead. They're very, very colorful.
Very red chest, I mean, a bib, I should say, green.
So now we are going on a river outing on the Chobe River.
The Malachi kingfisher was also beautiful. If anybody among you a bird watcher, you certainly can find whatever you were looking for.
And this one, it's hard to see, but it's also very colorful.
And now there we are having a neighbor.
And he is looking for food in the elephant dung. And there was another scary moment. We were in a little boat, and these 2 guys came in and joined the crowd. There were already several in the water.
And at one point, our boat driver said they could very well be under us. We better get out of there because if they come up, our boat will just flip.
And this is another little experience.
The middle there, that's a road where you see.
After all these outings that we had, we became overconfident. And we decided to explore another park in the area. And as you can tell, it was up and down, up and down. If you have driven on ice, trying to go up a hill, that's about the same thing, going up a sandy hill like this. And we did that for a little while, and for the first time during the Antarctic, we became, I mean, it's not deep, but it was deep enough that I knew that I couldn't get out of it. So we got out, never mind the lions and all that stuff. We got out, we got a few branches. We first cleaned up the sand away from the wheels, got a few branches, managed to get out, turned around and went back.
Now, the only thing he's not saying is that I would have loved to stay in because there were flies.
Oh, that's true.
There were flies all over. And of course, everything that's moist on you, they were wanting.
They were not flies, they were gnats, I guess, very, very little ones. And they are looking for humidity. So they will go for your eyes, your ears, your nose, your lips.
And you can't close it with a mask.
And
because
there
you
were
will-
thousands of those things. So now we're crossing the Zambezi River. And at this point in time, we gave up the car. And we had a guide, and he picked us up at this point, got a visa for us. And this is, we can't really tell, but this thing must have been like a mile long. There's one ferry, and all these cars are trying to go on that one ferry. And the reason is that the bridge, which is like 300 yards down, goes into Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe will have taxed them for the goods on a truck. So instead of paying a tax, they chose to wait here for several days and take a ferry. And these guys saying, hey, I'm going to do my laundry while I'm here. So we're going to Livingstone. The falls, the way they should be. Length 5,600 feet, 364 feet down. It looks like this in February and March. Remember, we are in a dry season. So this is what it looked like when we got there.
So, but that was the Zambian side. Now you have to remember there are different sides.
So this is the river above the falls.
And we had asked the driver to get us to the border.
And one driver left us at the foot of the bridge. We crossed the bridge, got to Zimbabwe, and the line going to the customs was like a couple of hours. And a local lady said, look, you're a tourist. Why should you waste your time waiting in line? Go ahead, go to the front of the line. That was so nice.
And nobody said anything about it.
No, they all
And
agreed
we all
that
agreed.
we are tourists, why should we have to wait? So, and
We had hired another guide to pick us up on the other side of the bridge. To take, pardon me?
What about all your suitcases and stuff?
oh no, here we are on a day trip.
Oh, it's a day.
It's a day trip. We only got a day
There's a
visa.
beautiful little monkey there. More antelopes. And now we're at the Zimbabwe side of the falls.
And we could barely take a clear picture because, as you can see, the steam is coming up. And that was the dry season. So if you were there in a wet season, I've heard people say that you can't even photograph because your lens gets immediately wet.
So there is much more water flow there on that side. So we're going from the Zen side, Zimbabwe, from the Zimbabwe side over to the Zambian side. Panning with the camera.
But only camera, not on foot. And that's what we saw on the other side. You see those mini triples? Now, back at our lodge, of course, in the evening we went back to the lodge. The next day, we decided to have one last nice outing. We went to a rehab center for animals and wild animals, lions and cheetahs. And they let us to take the cheetahs for a walk and pet them. And now those are 2-year-old cubs. They have been born in captivity, probably because their parents ran into one of those 3-thorn bushes and lost their eyesight. And after their 2 years in that captivity center very close by, then they release them into an area where they have no more contact with humans, but they're still fenced in and protected. And then after they have been used to that for 2 years, then they let them go out back into the wild. And there are what I found so interesting is that they cut down, I mean, the motto of that group was to rehab the animals, but on the other hand, to get the money for doing that, they cut down these acacia trees and cut them up, sold them for firewood. And so they made money that way and then spent it on their animals.
Okay, the system is frozen here. We cannot go further, but we are just about
I mean,
finished
we're
anyway.
just about finished.
So this will be the conclusion. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if you have any questions. That's our Namibian travel agency. I mean, we knew where we wanted to go. Gerald told them, and they planned it all. They even planned some of the transfers, where the guy would wait at our lodge to transfer us to someplace else.
And in lodges, were they relatively empty or a lot of people?
Whether the lodges were empty or very populated.
Half empty, I would say.
People from all over the world,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, there were people from all over the world.
So how long did it take you to go that circle?
Oh, 25 days.
It took out the entire course.
Altogether,
25 days.
about 2,000 miles.
So 2,000 miles, almost all on dirt roads. Yes?
What year did you make travel?
What was that?
The gentleman asked, what year did we make the travel? That was in 2013.
So 10 years ago.
We were still young at the time.
Yes?
You work through somebody in the US to contact that agency?
No, I looked them up on the internet. And
The travel agency, how we
they have
found
good
it.
recommendations, so I picked them up.
And we were not sorry that we picked that travel agent. They had really planned every detail and never failed, really. And it was, people were waiting for us where they were supposed to wait. And except at the very end, when we had to give up the car, when we were stuck in the sand out there having fun, the agent that was supposed to pick up the car somehow misunderstood because we were right. But he has been waiting there for 6 hours trying to pick up our car. But we were right. And enjoyed it. Thank you for coming. We really enjoyed sharing this with you.